testimony, but it's definitely so touching and just really shows God's love. A scripture that I have fallen on so much for the past year is Romans 8:1. There's no condemnation for those in Christ Jesus. And as I have gone through this past year, which has been a whirlwind year, I can't tell you how I've clung to that. How driving in my car, my mind is tough. Pardon the noise. But driving in my car, in places where I do a lot of driving, I'm between two locations, and just in that quiet time that I have with God, my mind is telling me one thing about myself. But God is saying, there's no condemnation for those in Christ Jesus. Can I get some help me on this? Sunday at our church, by the way, this lovely microphone. Listen, Satan has tried to stop me from coming here and talking, and I just want to let you know that the past 2 weeks has been unbelievable. The roadblocks and the trials and the tribulations. He doesn't want me to talk, so this little microphone is not going to stop me. I'm here, and I'm talking. I'm going to shed a whole lot of light on his little simple ways. So, back to what I was saying, I've really fallen on that scripture for the past year of my life, but I want to go back to when I was a child, and just to give you a little bit of insight to how things started with me and to how I started on the path that I was on in my life. At about 4 years old, my mother was diagnosed as paranoid schizophrenic. At that time, my father was in the service, and I had 2 brothers, and my mother could obviously not take care of us. So we were taken out of the home and we were put into foster care, where our families began to battle for years, until I was about 8 to get us back. During that time, I was in and out of homes, and I remember anxiety and fear and so many horrible feelings. Here, I'll hold it. That's even better. I remember so many horrible feelings at an age when you should feel comfort and the love of your parents and normalcy. I was learning fear and depression and doubt. Things that we hold on to. Okay. Things that we tend to hold on to our whole lives. So, I was in and out of foster care until about 8 years old. And I remember also feeling torn from my mother. That is a feeling that I went throughout my whole life feeling was a loss of not having my mother with me. At 8 years old, we got out of foster care. My father's family won custody, and they brought us all from up north down to Florida. And I remember being so excited. I was so excited because I thought, I've gotten through that. I'm going to have a new life at 8. When we got back to Florida, my brothers and I were split up. My brother, who I'm very close to today, 2 years younger than me, stayed with my father. My youngest brother went to live with my aunt, who was my father's sister. And they decided for me that it would be best if I went and lived with my uncle, who was my father's brother, and his wife. And I remember being so excited because I thought I was going to have a mom. And I held on to that. At 8 years old, I moved to Texas from Florida. And unbeknownst to me at the time, the relationship that I thought I was going to have didn't turn out that way. My aunt wanted children desperately with my uncle, but I didn't know that. So coming in, she had a lot of resentment. and the relationship was not so good. For the next 4 years, I faced a lot of abuse from her, physical abuse, emotional abuse. It was really tough. But you know, I remember about 10 years old, I told this to my pastor, that I crawled up to my bed every night. My favorite time of day was nighttime because I got 8 hours away from her abuse. And I used to just pray to Jesus and just cry out to him. And I felt so much comfort. She did bring me to church, so she had that facade of you know, being a Christian woman, but she had such a different side. At 12 years old, I couldn't take the abuse any longer, and I made the decision. I called my grandparents, my father's parents, and I told them what was going on. Particularly my grandmother, I told her. And at 12 years old, I planned my way out with my grandmother, and I would always go home in the summer to visit my grandparents. Well, this one summer, I knew that I was getting on that plane and I wasn't going back. And I was so happy. I just thought, oh, okay, maybe now it'll be better. So I come home to Florida to live with my grandparents, my father's parents. And shortly thereafter, it becomes very clear to me that my grandfather has an illness, and not an illness such as, you know, a disease, but he had an addiction, a sex addiction, and between the ages of 13 and 16, I went through trials and abuse, and he never crossed the line of touching me until one day. And I always said, it's not going to get that bad, it's not going to get that bad. And I would give him distant hugs, I would keep him at bay, until one day he crossed the line, and it was just enough for me to say, enough. This is enough. I told someone close to me, and I was put back into foster care at 16. I aged out of foster care at 18. During that 2-year period in my life in that foster home, it was a home for only girls because we'd all been there for similar reasons. But during this time, you can call me a survivor. I had a survivor mentality. I was good at moving. I was good at adapting to different situations. I was good at just rolling with the punches. And at that age, it became about surviving and striving. That's what my life became about. So as I was in foster care, I was a little, a lot of the girls in the home were in and out of trouble, so much horrible abuse they'd lived through. For me, I just turned it into striving. I'm gonna be somebody. I'm gonna make a lot of money. I'm gonna be very successful. I'm gonna have this wonderful life. You know what? Now, what I know now, and what I knew then, going through the storm, it's so different. Going through the storm, I just thought, I can get through this. Okay, I'm out of foster care. I'm gonna live with my aunt. I can get through that. Okay, go live with my grandparents. I can get through this. I can get through it. I can get through it. My whole life was spent living, just getting through it. Okay, so during this period of time, my life revolved around being successful and trying to be successful and trying to find my way. Between 16 and 18, I had a very serious boyfriend at the time, and I'd been with him for quite a while. And being raised without morals, being raised without certain values, being raised, you know, not being taught what was right and wrong, I started to seek self-worth in this relationship. At 17 years old, in the foster home that I was in, I found out I was pregnant by Jason. And this is where everything started to change for me. It was such an awakening of, wow. I mean, we are all of I have a decision to make. What am I going to do? I hid my pregnancy because I didn't want my child to become a part of the system. I hid my pregnancy for 6 months. I moved out of that foster home when I turned 18. And God planted people all along in my life. Even when I didn't think He was there, He planted people in my life. There was the perfect family that God had chosen, and I made the decision to give my daughter up for adoption. So I moved out of that home at 18, and I had my daughter. I flew to Arizona to have her, and I came back, and it was the most difficult decision I've ever made, and hopefully ever have to make. But coming back at 18, I realized, wow, there's got to be a better way. Life cannot just be about living and surviving and striving. I'm going to sum this part up quick, because the part that God told me to talk about is the real message. Once I came back at 18 and ended that relationship, I got into another very, very abusive relationship. And that's what happens. You tend to just kind of become a product of your environment. If you're not seeking Christ, if you're not being taught God's word, if you're not being told there's a better way, if you're not being told that, then how do you know that? So I got into a very abusive relationship. In that relationship, I ended up getting pregnant. And I thought, oh no, I know that pain. I know the pain of holding a child and touching her and talking to her, but not being able to keep her. I know that pain. I'm not going back there. And I'm not going to raise my daughter or my child in a home that's abusive. So I thought I knew better than God. And I made the decision to end that pregnancy. Yes, I did. And here's what Satan wants you to think. He wants you to think that you have to live with shame. Oh, you've done that. You shameful person, you. Oh, you've done this. Oh, how can God ever love you? Well, I did. I made that decision on my own because I just couldn't foresee raising a child in such an abusive place. And long story short, much like you, Juliet, it really hit home. I realized I can't do this. I cannot. I ballooned up to 208 pounds because I was just miserable, and I just ate my sorrows away. And long story short, I started to take control of my health. That was the only thing I knew. I was still stuck in this abusive relationship. I couldn't go to a gym. I couldn't do anything. So I started to run, and I started to eat clean. And as I started to change my body, I started to gain this strength inside. Now, what I know now is that strength inside was God. He was with me through all those trials. He was with me through every tribulation. He was never not there. I didn't see it as that then because I wasn't raised to even know how powerful and how almighty He is. So I got out of that relationship. I did. I had the strength to tell him, get lost. And if you're going to hurt me like you say, put your money where your mouth is, because I would rather something happen than live another day with you. And God gave me that strength and that courage. Shortly after that relationship ended, is when my life really started to change. Not too long after that, I met my husband, Alex. You want to talk about broken? When I met Alex, my self-esteem was in the gutter. All the lies that Satan tries to get us to believe, I believed every lie. I was just broken. That's the best word I can think to describe what I was going through. And here in comes Alex. And this man just loved me. He just loved me. He didn't talk down to me and call me names and belittle me like I was used to. And I didn't know how to take it. I didn't know how to accept that. It's a lot like God's love. God's love's much, 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 much stronger, but it's unconditional. It's you're worth it. You're beautiful. You're somebody. Your life, there's a purpose for your life. After Alex and I met, back in 2004 this was, excuse me, I'm gonna get some water. After Alex and I met, we did everything backwards. There's usually the courtship, you get engaged and you get married. Well, we did everything backwards. We got together, shortly thereafter, he helped me get really fit. We started our business. Then we got engaged, and then we got married. We did everything backwards. We got caught up in that cycle of, remember, I hadn't healed. I was taking all my junk, all my baggage, and I was just dragging it along with me. Dragging it, literally. Then I meet him, and I'm like, wow, okay, I can walk a little easier with this baggage. But it was still there. It was still there. So 2004, I met him, ironically, you'll know why later, on September 16th, 2004. In March of 2007, we were married. And now, standing there, I remember taking my vows and knowing I loved him so much. But I did not know the vows that I was taking and the depth to which those vows mattered, not only to me, but to God. I was taking an oath in front of God. I didn't know what I was saying. The pastor read the vows, and I said them. Now you have to keep in mind, at this point, Alex and I we had grown a successful business. God blessed us in that sense, but our business grew and grew and grew and grew. We were little hometown celebrities. Everywhere we went, people knew us. You couldn't go to Starbucks without somebody knowing you. I used to ask them to go to the Starbucks on the other side of town just because I wanted a break. I didn't want to run into somebody I knew. So we got so caught up in everything else in the world that matters but us. Shortly after we were married, 6 months later, God blessed us with a child. In October of 2007, we found out that I was pregnant. He and I both, together, I remember this so clearly, we thought that we could control everything. Kids? Oh, we're not ready for kids. Kids are a nuisance. We have a successful business to run. We gotta make the money. We gotta do really well. We gotta strive. How many of us fall into that? I'm not the only one. And you think that your career is more important, this is more important, your clothes are more important, the car you drive is more important than God and what God says is important. So yes, in October, I found out I was pregnant. The one thing was different was I had such a connection with him and such a trust that I never talked to him. I never shared with my husband what I shoved down inside me so deep. I didn't want to bring it out. I never shared it with Alex. We made the decision to end that pregnancy. This is now where I'm getting to the message God wants me to share. That was the beginning of the end. This knight in shining armor, this guy that I thought was just so wonderful. Deep down, I wanted to keep that child. But what Satan feeds us, those lies, kids are a nuisance. You can't be a mom, you don't have what it takes, you don't have the money, you don't have the time. So, Alex and I began to really struggle. I was struggling inside, our marriage was struggling, and we were not in a good place. And all this time, I never really turned to God. I I never turned to him to say, what are the answers? What do you want me to do? Well, let me tell you, as I'm sure you guys can catch the theme here, motherhood was a weakness of mine. It was always something that I didn't think I was worthy of. I didn't think I could be a good mom. I didn't think I had enough money. I didn't think I had what it took. I didn't have the upbringing to know. I had fear, deep fear of how I was raised, and I did not want to raise a child in that environment. After this happened, a part of me, it was almost like it died, especially in our marriage. I started to look at my husband different, and Satan came in through the back door. Every single place in our life, and we all sitting here have them to this day, right now, in this moment, we have those places that are weak, that are vulnerable. That's where Satan comes in. He comes in and he attacks us, friends. For me, Satan was saying, there's something better than your husband. There's something better than that man who didn't want to have a child with you. The grass is definitely greener on the other side. And let me tell you, I am living proof that Satan knows the Bible as well as God knows the Bible. I stepped out of my marriage. It was a gentleman that came into my life. I shouldn't call him a gentleman. He came into my life, and this man knew the Word of God. He could quote scripture. He could literally recite the Bible. It was unbelievable. I was hurting. I was vulnerable. I was weak. I was broken. I was believing the lies of Satan. And I stepped out and I thought, hey, this guy over here, he can probably do better. Maybe I'll be happy now. So I began about a 3-4 month affair. This is when, in the midst of that horrible time, this is when God said, your success, your monetary success, your life, your striving, everything you've worked for, that does not matter. My soul was torn in two. I would lay in bed with my husband and want to hold him and just touch him. And there were a couple times I would go and just go to run him, rub his head or something. And this voice in my head would say, you're not worthy. You scoundrel, you adulteress. Does your husband know what you're doing when he's not around? Does he know where you are? This is the voice. I was in a literal spiritual war, and I was not equipped. Let me tell you, I was not equipped. I was living the worldly way. I'd been living the worldly way my whole life, just searching for something better. Sadly and gladly at the same time, however that happens, I found God. When I made the horrible mistake and sin of stepping outside of my marriage, this is the message God wanted me to share. I prayed. I said, Lord, put the words on my tongue that you want me to speak. Please, give me a moment. Please, Lord, have me turn to a page in the Bible that you want me to talk about. And I turned, literally like you said, Sarah, I turned in the Bible to the story of the woman that they dragged through the streets who was an adulteress. And they said, we should stone her. Did Jesus? Did he say that? my story. I was ridden with guilt and shame. This was just almost unbearable. I told my pastor there were so many times that I drove down the street and a voice in my head said, just throw yourself out, and it's over, it's done. Oh, let me tell you how close I was. How close I was to just wanting to just throw myself out into the street. But you know what, friends? Wherever you are in your life right now, whatever is going on that maybe no one knows about, nobody. Are you kidding? Nobody knew what I was caught up in, and I wanted help. I wanted to get out. Could I run to someone and say, I'm having an affair, can you help me? Please help me out. I was literally torn into whatever place you are in your life right now, friends. If there's something that people don't know, and you feel like you're torn into, or you're hurting, or you're in pain, God will and can and has the power to help you out of it. God's help came to me in the form of a woman who was working out in our gym. And obviously I'm not going to name names, but this woman was working out in our gym. And my husband started to put two and two together, but he just couldn't put his finger on it. Because remember, this gentleman could quote the Bible. He was a Christian gentleman. So he said, he hung out in a Christian coffee shop. Do you know where I met him 95% of the time when I would sit there? Like, just being ridden with this spiritual war going on inside of me. It was at this beautiful Christian coffee shop that we have that plays the most beautiful gospel music. And it was in a place that should be filled with God. And I knew what I was doing was wrong. I knew it. I sat there and I just couldn't. It's like it was like this pull. My soul was just being pulled. Ashley, what are you doing? I knew the Holy Spirit. This is wrong. You know this. And then Satan, you're worthless. You're worthless. Everything you've ever done and gone through is catching up to you, girlfriend. It's not a fun place to be. So my husband, putting two and two together, he knew that this woman in our gym this day didn't have the best relationship with the gentleman whom I was having an affair with, whom this gentleman was around my husband quite a bit. Talk about right under your nose. Oh yeah, yeah. Well, Alex, for some reason, he said he just felt this feeling to ask this woman why she didn't like him. He said, I saw a look in her face. She looked at this man one day that I had an affair with, and he said, I caught that look, and something made me ask her why she gave him that look. What followed next was a 3-hour conversation, and that woman was caught up in the very same thing that I was with the very same man. And her marriage survived it. And all of a sudden, light bulbs started going off in Alex's head. And he started to make sense of everything. Oh my gosh. And this woman looked at my husband and said, your wife is caught up in the same thing. Don't you go. Don't you accuse her. Go back and love her. Because I know where she is. I know where she is. I know the place that she's in. Do not condemn her. I'll do it with you. I'll help you. I went through the same thing. She went through the same thing. How amazing is God? Because let me tell you, I don't know that if Alex had waited 2 more months, or if God had waited another month, if I would have lived through it. That's how much guilt I had. What followed, now also this gentleman, or man, whatever, guy, he came in. The way to get to me, you see, Satan knows everything about us. He knows how to get to us. Well, he came in, he was a business advisor. He said, I can take your business from 300 to 1 million. That's all you had to say to me. Remember, I'm a striver. I'm all about making the money and being successful, not now. But that's what my life revolved around. That's how he got in with me. was to tell me, hey, I can come in, I can do this and this and this with your business, and you'll have $1 million business. And then what followed is, once he was in the door, Satan knew. He knew all of my weaknesses. He knew all of the places where I was vulnerable and hurting. And he started to just weave his way in, just like the snake. And as my pastor says to me quite often, Satan doesn't come in with horns on. He doesn't come in like, hey, I'm Satan, I'm here to destroy you. He comes in like an angel of light. This guy he was going to take my business to the next level. He wanted to have children. Oh, I've been through 3 pregnancies. Can't find one. All I wanted was one time to get pregnant and someone to be so excited. It never happened for me. So I started to believe I wasn't worthy of being a mother. But this man, oh no. He had kids. He wanted more kids. Satan just played on all of those weaknesses. Once my husband realized what was going on, he set up a business meeting. So we were going to discuss our business and how this guy was going to help us. My husband actually took this Bible before he went into this meeting, because what I thought was going to be a meeting, my husband knew was going to be a confrontation. And for the first time in our lives, this horrible, nasty place to be. I mean, nasty. Adultery, are you kidding me? I know what some of y'all are thinking. Oh my gosh, I can't believe she did that. Well, you know what? We're human. We're human, and we are always going to sin because we're human. But we have to rely on Christ. My husband sat in the truck and he said he put his Bible to his forehead like this. And he started to pray. For several reasons. Pray that he would have the strength. Pray that he wouldn't do anything stupid. I mean, seriously, you're dealing with a very serious situation. And he needed God's strength, and he put this Bible to his head and he prayed. And God planted a woman and her husband who went through the same thing with the same man in my husband's life to help pull me out of it. Alex walked into that Starbucks to meet us, and I sat there and I remember feeling like my life and my body was held in the talons of Satan. That is how severely strong this was. And just like one of the speakers, I can't remember which one, said, you don't understand a spiritual war unless you really understand Christ. And if you don't understand the Spirit, I don't remember who said it. Oh, it was a spiritual war. And as I sat there looking at my husband, you know what I was thinking? I love that man. Gosh, I love that man. What am I doing? And the next second, I watched Alex's mannerisms, and knowing him so well, a voice in my head said, be calm. He knows. It's all going to be okay. Before my husband said one word, I knew that he knew. And only with God's love and God's mercy, only with God's love and God's mercy, did my husband look at this man, not harm him, and confront him. And he said, it's done. She's my wife. I know what's going on. It's done. And do you know, just like a little demon slithering down in a chair, that's what I saw. It was like I saw a little demon just slithering down in the chair because he had been confronted. My husband took his wedding ring off and he set it across from me. And he said, you have a choice to make, Ashley. He said, what you tell me next determines if I stay or if I go. And he said, you think about what you tell me, because I know, excuse me, may I have a tissue? Thank you. He said, because I know that if you lied to me, I'm gone forever. And I looked at him, and it's because I could shake my head, yes. I said, yes, 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 yes. I felt like immediately this. I felt free. Oh my God. dunked underwater for 4 months. And all of a sudden, somebody pulled me up and I could breathe. Not knowing what lie ahead of me, not knowing what I faced when I went home alone with my husband, because the wonderful couple that stepped up and came in to help Alex during this time, they showed up because they knew he was coming to confront, and they'd been through the very same thing. They opened up wounds in their relationship to help us. And all of a sudden, I felt like I could breathe, and I felt relief. And let me tell you, because I'm a visual person, I was literally brought to my knees. My life of surviving and thriving and trying to get the best this, the best that. When you're faced with a moment and you're looking at your life and you're about to lose everything that really matters, I always tell people you would do things different if God said, ma'am in the purple, it's a beautiful shirt. This is your last 5 minutes. Think about that. This is your last 5 minutes. What are you going to do with that 5 minutes? I was losing everything that meant anything to me. And God brought me to my knees. After all the commotion, we leave Starbucks. And inside, I'm, oh my God, what am I going to go home to? He's going to call me every name in the book. I've been such a horrible... I mean, let me tell you, there's not one word my husband could have said to me that I didn't say to myself. Satan was still trying to... This September 16th, 2011. Remember we met September 16th, 2004? September 16th, 2011 is when I went from believing in God to believing in God to believing in Him to having a relationship with Him. I got home that night. My eyes literally, I could not see out of them. I was crying so hard like golf balls. I don't know about you ladies, when I cry, my eyes get like golf balls and I can't see out of them. My husband said, Ashley, come here. Oh my gosh, my stomach was like, and it was horrible. And I walk out, and he said, come here. I said, you sit on my lap. I sat on my husband's lap, and he looked at me and he said, I believe in you, Ashley Nicole. I know this is not who you are. You're beautiful. You're strong. I married you. Whatever Satan is telling you, these are the words that my husband spoke. I'll never forget them as long as I live. Whatever lies Satan is telling you, you don't believe them. You are strong and you are beautiful. And that is when I went to having a relationship with God, because that was God speaking through my husband. That was nearly impossible for a human, much less a man. I mean, let's be realistic. A man, that was God speaking through my husband. It was God when my husband threw the Bible up to his forehead and he prayed before he went in to confront the man who was having an affair with his wife. It was God who was there when he put that woman so perfectly in the gym at the right time, at the right moment, so that my husband could ask one question that opened the door. It was God that was with me throughout my whole life. All those times that I thought I was alone, when I would crawl to bed because I would get 8 hours of not being abused, and Jesus was just there. It was like His presence. Oh man. Our God is an awesome God. And when He told me, I opened it to the Bible of that story of the woman being dragged through the city, and I said, oh, that's what you want me to talk about? And I literally, my pastor laughed when I told her this. I said, just to make sure, I opened the Bible a second time. I'm like, no. Let me open it a second time. You know what I opened it to the second time? God said, oh no, baby. This is what you're going to talk about. I opened it to 2 Samuel, where David had an affair. And his sin, it talked about his sin, and I thought, wow. But you know what? I had seen God. I had felt God that night, that moment when my husband held me in his arms, when I had done the unforgivable. And he looked at me and said, this is not who you are. You are beautiful, and we're going to get through this. So, in conclusion, on our lunch break, I ran up to the room to have some one-on-one time with God and confirm everything that I was supposed to share today, because one thing that means the world to me is that I don't want to speak my words. I want to speak God's words. I want to share God's grace and His amazement and His love. His just unbelievable, unfathomable love for us. So when I went up, I sat on the hotel bed, and I said, Lord, is there anything else I need to share besides this? You've confirmed that. You are really asking me to be transparent. But is there anything else you want me to share? And you guys can guess what I did next. I opened the Bible to Psalms 127. Our God is an awesome God. And it says, life without God is senseless. All of life's work, filling a home, establishing a career, everything that I built everything on was how big I could get my career. And raising a family must have God as the foundation. Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the guards stand watch in vain. In vain you rise early and stay up late, toiling for food to eat, for He grants sleep to those He loves. Children, boy, this is one. I said to Alex, you're not going to believe this. Children are a heritage from the Lord, offspring, a reward from Him. The one thing that I thought I could control all of my pregnancies, give my daughter up for adoption, and then think that I have the control to make a decision over a life that God has planted within me. Not once, but twice. And God's saying, Ashley, children are a beautiful thing. So I researched it a little further, and it says, too often children are seen as liabilities rather than assets. But the Bible calls children a heritage from the Lord, a reward. We can learn valuable lessons from their inquisitive minds and trusting spirits. Those who view children, this was me, as a distraction or a nuisance, would instead see them as an opportunity to shape the future. We dare not treat children as an inconvenience when God values them so highly. So what has happened in my life? What is the moral of this story? And I'm done after this. You can strive, you can run, you can do whatever you think that is humanly possible or within your control. Nothing matters, and nothing will work unless you allow God into your life, into your heart, unless you let Him be the one that your eyes are focused on. I have been so blessed with mentors and with my pastor, invaluable, and my good friend Debbie, just to help me learn the Word of God and really understand what He's all about. And this is what I'm going to leave you with today, ladies. I want to encourage you. Okay, we have